Hey folks, so today we're going to cut together a little short horror story. Mine is just based around a jump scare. I've already imported my footage. I shot this all last night real fast. Did this in about, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes total. So now we're gonna, and I didn't put a ton of thought into it. I just was kind of making it up as I went. My idea was I wanted something creepy around the house. The creepiest thing I have is this puppet. But I also didn't want to be too obvious about what I was going to be using as my horror element. So I wanted to distract. So I used a red ball to draw attention away from the puppet initially, to create a misdirection. Misdirection is very important in horror. That's, the jump scares with the cats coming out of the shadows often just before the actual monster does. You build up a bit of tension, and then you startle the audience with something that's relatively non-threatening. So it's a kind of a surprise, a laugh, a letdown. And that misdirects them into feeling safe, and then the real threat jumps out. The basic idea behind a simple scene like this. So yeah, I've already imported my footage. If you need a review on that, you can look at one of the previous videos in the resources. So I'm just going to start off here with, let's see, I started with a wide shot of me painting on sitting on the couch painting props, which is what I was actually doing most of the weekend, as I do a lot of my weekends. But I want to hear something just off screen. So let's see. We're going to get back to painting just a little bit. I'm just going to start right there in... I look up when something happens. But that, we're going to see that in a separate shot. So we'll start off with just this. I'm going to zoom in on the timeline. Oh, that's only a 1 second shot, just a second and a half. So that might be a little too short. I'll make it a little bit longer since this is an opening shot. Alright, so that's my first shot. Now, the second shot actually shows this ball rolling, but it's a little too close to my first shot. See, this is my first shot. This is the shot I'm going to cut to next, but they're very similar. This is obviously a wider shot, but we don't want to stay that close. So I'm going to cut to a close-up of myself painting first. And see how those... Now, I'm hearing a big audio jump there, but you guys probably aren't hearing that. And I'm going to get rid of the audio that was... I just had the TV running as I was shooting. I'm going to get rid of that audio later and put in a uniform track so it's not... we don't hear the cuts. But alright, where's the next shot I was going to get? Because the idea is this ball rolls on its own and scares me. And I did it in this wide shot by pushing the ball with a stick so that it would be far away from me and still move. But you can see the stick through most of that. So I'm just looking for, just as I pull the stick away and hide it under the table just before the ball actually starts really rolling. And I'll actually go back a few frames. You might see the stick just a little bit, but I don't think anybody will notice other than, me pointing it out to them in a tutorial video. So there, ball rolled. I'm going to get a close-up of my reaction now. Oh, actually, no, I've already looked up in the first shot, so I don't need to see my head moving. I just need my quizzical expression out. So set a different in point, out point. All right, so I jumped ahead a little bit here and added a few more shots in. So we've got the initial ball rolling in, my reaction, and here I say something to the cat. And then, to match that, we do a quick cut in of the cat. Now, this was one where she's not actually looking at the ball, she's just looking at me snap my fingers, but that's, the usefulness of editing, the power of editing, is you can take disassociated actions and put them into a scene to help create meaning. Now, one thing you'll notice here is she's facing to the right of the screen, whereas I'm gesturing off to the left, and she is sitting on my right hip here. Thing is, because I was doing this by myself, I used the front-facing camera for a lot of this, which flipped the image. So this is the mirror image of how my house is actually laid out. So after I get this basic cut laid down, I'll go through and flip the appropriate shots so that everything is looking in the right direction. But for now, it looks a little weird. So yeah, got the line to the cat. We look up again and turn down the TV because apparently, I need to hear a ball. It rolls again. I react again. Ooh, I need to trim that up to show better my actual reaction so it's not delayed. So I'm just going to cut that right there. Oops. Get rid of that chunk. And move these up. So now, the ball's rolled again. I react again. And I react a second time. So I probably want to drop something in for my heightened reaction there. So I'm going to make another cut with the C button right there at that point and move those shots down a little bit. And then I'm just going to get a shot in here of me pushing the ball. There we go. That works just fine. I'm just going to grab that chunk. So there, as the ball rolls further away, I throw the remote control down. Now I have a separate shot for that because I want to highlight the puppet a little bit. So just before the remote leaves my hand, I'm going to make another cut there. Move these shots out of the way and find the shot where I throw the remote control by the puppet. And I did it a couple times. There we go, just as it leaves my hand. In point, out point. Don't need to really hang on it, we just want to get the idea across. And then we'll move that one back over there. Now I need to trim this shot up a little bit because we don't need to see the microphone or the remote land twice. So I'm just going to get rid of that chunk of the remote landing. And then I get up. Okay, so I've gone in and finished the edit more or less. I've added the rest of my shots and trimmed them up a little bit, and I've gone ahead and flipped everything that was shot with my front-facing camera so they all face the same direction. And I've removed the audio, so that's the next thing I'm going to do, the audio. But one thing I wanted to point out here is most of this I lit pretty flat, sitcom lighting style. I've got like 3 lights on in my living room and there's very little shadow around. And that was intentional, even for a horror movie, because then as I follow this spooky ball down the hallway, it enters into a different lighting scheme that has more shadows and contrast and some color in there. And I picked color I picked the color green for that room because green is the natural contrast for red and makes both pop a little better. And so there, now we're getting into the deeper shadows, and then we get this slash of light on my face right as we reach the climax. and I get attacked by a puppet. So, rah. All right, so as to sound, I've already done a little bit here. As I said, I removed the original audio from all of this. And then I've added 2 audio tracks here. And we're going to go up to the audio tab. We really haven't talked about this yet. You can add audio in the edit. You can drop and move clips around. But what the audio tab lets you do is get in and fine tune it and adjust the volume of things. So as you see in here, I've got 2 audio clips. And I removed all the original audio, so I had 1 line of dialogue where I just asked the cat if she saw that. And I had to add that in as a separate track that I just recorded on my phone. I just talked into my phone and said those lines and dumped it in right there. You can't hear my playback here, but you've seen it in the finished version. This here is the TV in the background. I have it fade in a little bit, and then it goes, and then it stops when I turn it off with the remote control. And the way you do these fade in and out is you've got this white line here. This is your volume. If you grab that, you bring it up and down. But if you click on that line, it creates these little dots. These are called keyframes. And they set the volume to stay at whatever level it's at that point in time. So if I leave the volume up high here and then lower it here, it'll start up high and then slowly get quiet all the way down. And then here it'll go back up again slowly. So that's how you do fades with audio, which is real handy. I've got that in there now. I just need a little music. So I'm going to add 1 more audio track. Going to track commands, tracks, add audio. Because I've already got 2 in there. Dialogue, background sound effects. Now I'm going to put my music into audio 1. So I just imported a song. I'm going to go to local files. Found the theme song to a horror movie about puppets. That seemed appropriate. I've imported that. I'm going to use the edit tab to drop it in. Okay. It takes 2 audio tracks because it's stereo, so I need to add another one. And I can see that the song gets more intense as it goes just from looking at the waveform. It starts quietly and gets really intense. I'm not sure what part I want to use for this, and of course you can't hear this part, but I'm just listening a little bit. Yeah, it gets a little too intense as it goes along, so I'm just going to have it start right about the time my TV sound cuts out, right about here. I think I'll actually overlap them a bit. Yeah. So the music will start just before the TV cuts out. And then we'll just... Okay, so there's kind of a scary part in the music that comes right here at this swell. So I'm going to use that as my endpoint for this music. So there's going to be a chunk here without music. It'll just be quiet, which I think will add to the spookiness just a touch. Okay, so now that I've got that laid in there, I could go in and adjust the volume of that audio, fade it in and out if I need to. In this case, I'm just going to fade it out at the very end, so it's just not an abrupt crashing sound. This has 2 audio tracks, so I have to fade both of them out. Otherwise, you'd only have the right or the left fade out. And that just depends on what audio you're using. This is a stereo track. A lot of times I use mono sound, which is just 1 track for video, and then I duplicate it later to create the stereo effect. But we'll get more into that later. All right, so that was the process on editing this particular short. You do not have to do one like this, but yours might look similar. And if you can't come up with an idea, then try to create a jump scare, something along these lines.